What's happening, Sandbox Gamers? My name is Leuname and welcome back to RAD. Now, as you'll notice as we move into the landscape, my house has seemingly gone missing. And that's because I tore it down because it kind of looked like this. One of the ugliest things I've probably seen in my life. And as we circle around here to the Super M's house, it's looking alright, definitely better than mine, but nothing, spectacular. So I decided that both of our houses need an upgrade. So I decided that I am going to be building a castle for the two of us to live in together. And you'll see where it is in a second as we pan around here. I've terraformed the land ahead of time into what I think would be the perfect place to build a castle for the two of us for the rest of the series. So with all that said, let's get in. Now you might notice immediately that it looks like the Super M is actually building this thing. I assure you he's not. That is actually me controlling the Super M's body down there because the real me has to sit up here watching all this for the recording. Just to clear things up. So first things first, I laid out the foundations for what I wanted in this build, and I've used the different colors of wool to mark where I wanted them. I used red for the main building, I've used orange and green later on for the walls, and yellow and white I've used for the towers, and I've used green and yellow because I ran out of white and orange, as you'll see in a second. Now you also might be wondering that this build is going pretty slowly compared to other builds you might have seen, and that's because I'm building this thing entirely in survival. Why? Well, partially because I'm insane, and the other is because I get a lot more satisfaction when building in survival than creative. So once the foundations were in place, I started on a basic design for what I wanted the walls to be. I want the walls to be stone brick, because I like the way stone brick looks when building walls. That's my favorite material to build. And I also tried adding some windows to it, but I built the wall 8 blocks wide, and that's why you see me replacing in the row there. So that way I can have even space for the windows. When you want to build windows to make them evenly spaced, you always want them to be odd. So with that out of the way, I then got started on the first tower, and I actually decided to use polished andesite for the towers because I like the way the polished andesite looks. I thought it looked well with the stone bricks, and I also didn't want this whole thing to be just stone bricks because I felt like that would just make it look way too plain. Despite the fact I am going to add some cracked stone bricks and some regular andesite to give it a bit more variation later on, I still think just making everything out of stone bricks would just make it a little too boring. Here you can see me putting down the flooring, which I went with oak wood for the flooring because I like the way it blended with the polished andesite. I thought that looked really good. And then here you can see me just putting down a basic window design. Simple 2x2 frame with wooden fences with some stairs on top and bottom. And once those were done, I started working on the floor and raising the tower up a bit. Now I wasn't quite sure how big I wanted to go with these towers because I wanted to go high enough that I can have multiple levels along with the roof, but I didn't want them so high that they would be higher than the main building because I wanted the main building to overreach everything. Eventually I decided to make them 13 blocks high. I thought that would have provided plenty of space to have multiple floors and a roof, but still be smaller than the main building. After that, it was time to start thinking about how I wanted the roof and the top of the tower to look. I started with these crenellations simply made of the polished andesite like I did for the tower, but I switched them out for stone brick steps because I think that if I used the stone brick steps, they would make the tower look a lot less blocky because the tower is blocky enough as it is. And then I started working on the roof. Now, roofs are something that I am almost never satisfied when I'm building. Every time I've tried to build a roof, no matter what I've been doing, it always looks like somebody just took the roof off the building and ran over it with a truck. And that's why you're going to see me playing with at least a few different designs for the roof before I settle on one that I'm not necessarily happy with, and you'll see that when I go to change it later on. What I wanted for this roof was a roof that started out slightly slanted, but then at one point just suddenly jolted upward to a point. and that's what I tried to do when I was working on this. Like I said, the one that I finished off here isn't the one I wanted. I went back later on and actually changed it to a design that I actually done by mistake on the second tower, and I ended up enjoying that much more. So once that was done, I put together the window on the second floor, and then I started building these wooden struts with spruce wood just to add a bit more decoration and to make the tower look a little bit more structurally stable. Now after looking at these, I thought to myself that the struts actually went a bit too high. It kind of looked like the building wasn't very stable and it was relying on the struts to stay up. So I went ahead and went to each strut and cut them down by 4 blocks just to make it look more like the building was more simply supported by the struts and not the fact that it was relying on the struts to stay up. So once that was done, I got to work on the second tower, repeating the pattern for the most part, but it was here that I actually ended up getting some ideas that I would use for the rest of the towers and ones that I would replace on the first tower. Now you may have noticed that edit there that snow had just appeared on this second tower, and that's because I actually ran out of andesite during the build and had to go actually mine more in order to finish it. So once that was done, I started working on the roof again, once again trying to repeat the pattern for the first one, although I didn't realize it while I was building this, but I had actually built the tower 1 block lower than the first one. I'll realize it at some point, but for now I just kept building the tower as it was. So here's where I started adding the struts for the second tower, but then I actually got an idea. I saw that the Super M had some spare stacks of what's called great wood, so I decided to borrow some of them, and I used them to experiment with, and I absolutely loved the way they looked with the andesite, so I decided to use them for the rest of the towers, and I would replace these with the ones on the first tower. And after I put them on, I realized now that I had built the tower 1 block lower than the first one, so I had to go back, delete everything, and basically add another set of andesite, and I had to redo the floor and fall through the floor a couple times to get the floor to the same level. After I finished building the first roof, I realized I had built it 1 block lower than the first one, so I tore the roof down again, added another fence post, and had to rebuild the roof again, but this actually turned out to be good for me because I actually ended up with a design for the roof that I liked a lot more than the original, and I decided to keep it for the rest of the build, and I would replace it on the first tower, which you'll see in a minute. The design for the roof on the second tower was similar to the first one, but this one spiked up a lot more than the first one, and I really liked it because it adds a little more variation to the standard roof. And then here you can see me completely adjusting the roof for the first tower. I also went ahead and completely removed the struts for the first tower and replaced them with the great wood. So that's what we've got completed so far, but we still got 4 more to go. Luckily, using a camera trick, I was able to make the remaining 4 towers appear right before your eyes. So for now at least, the towers are done, but there are some errors that I'm going to need to fix later. But guess what? We still got a whole set of walls to do, and we still got the main building to do. So strap yourselves in, let's get started on the walls. So obviously, since the towers are 13 blocks high, I also wanted the walls to be 13 blocks high. That way we'd be able to walk along the walls in between the towers in case we need to get somewhere. I started work on crenellations for the wall because I like the way the crenellations look for castle walls, and I decided to make them kind of bulge a little bit outward because I wanted to have the guards to have as much room to walk on as possible, and the fact that if I had the crenellations on the wall instead of jutting out, that would give them less space. Now I did make a bit of an error here. I didn't realize that I had not built the wall up to the tower level yet, so I went ahead and deleted the crenellations, and then filled up the wall back to where it was, and then put the crenellations back in. And I definitely think it looks a lot better that way, and I think you'll agree. I also decided to change up the crenellations on the tower a little bit. I made them a little bit taller. I can't remember exactly why I made them a little bit taller, because looking back on this, I completely dislike the way these high crenellations look compared to the rest of them. I also had a hard time getting the supports to look good because I didn't realize until right here that I had built the windows 1 block too far to the right. So I completely gotten rid of all the windows and moved them 1 block to the left, and then I started laying out some stone brick and some of the great wood to decide which one I wanted for the struts. And I ended up going with the stone brick because I think it made it look a little bit more uniform, especially the fact that I could add these stone brick steps to add more decoration that way. And then I added the little wall here that met up with the building, just so we know that where it started. And there we go! The towers, for the most part, are complete. They're not entirely done. I do need to go back and fix a couple of the errors that I had made while building them. But overall, I'm definitely happy with the way these were made. If I was an enemy of this castle, I would definitely be wetting myself if I had to go against these things. And you can see the wall there. A definite good start in the construction of the wall. Now unfortunately we are far from done. We still gotta take that pattern of the wall and apply it to the rest of the walls around the castle. And even after that's done, we still gotta work on the main building. But unfortunately, that's all gonna have to wait until the next episode when we actually tackle the wall and then get started on the main building. But until that time comes, this has been Survival Castle Part 1. Thank you all as always so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. That means a lot to me. If you like what I do and you want to support me in the future, please feel free to hit subscribe. And I will see you all in the next video. But until next time, see you guys later. Okay, let's hope this works. Everybody withdraw. This is bad. This is so bad. Just fall back right now. Save some lives. That includes you. Oh my gosh, this was horrible. Yeah.